time, so we're going to go live. Are you ready?
Yep, ready.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Van Alstyne. Welcome to The Social Academic on YouTube. Today, we're talking about SEO, SEO, search engine optimization. And I have a special live guest to talk with you about that. This is Patrick Wareing. He runs a SEO company and helps scientists and life science companies around the world. Patrick, would you mind introducing yourself and your company just to get us started?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Jennifer. So I'm Patrick. I'm based in Leeds in the UK. I'm a life science digital marketing consultant that's working with life science companies from Europe and America to help with their SEO challenges that they have. So these businesses are life science businesses or related, because life science is quite a broad industry.
Right. Now, SEO is especially important for scientists, but the first question is, what is search engine optimization?
So search engine optimization, and probably the easiest way to say it, is the process of improving website visitors. So in terms of improving them, you are improving the number of people that come to your website and the quality of people that come to your website from search engines. So this is when people go to Google, go to Bing or whatever search engine they use, type in a query that they're looking for a solution, and then they see the list of results, and then they'll click on a result. And SEO is about getting as high up the page as you can for certain keywords and generating traffic that way.
So that's really interesting. SEO is not just about improving the number of visitors to your website, but also improving the quality of those visitors. What do you mean by that?
So one of the things with quality is finding the right people for say your business or for whatever it is. So if you have a business website, you probably want people to come along that are going to engage with your business or buy from your business or even generate a lead. You don't just want to generate traffic for the sake of it, because there's no point getting traffic if they don't do anything for it. So one of the ways to get quality traffic is to match is what's called keyword intent. So keyword is the word or phrase you use to search something in Google. So if I was going to search for, say, let's say buy an iPhone, popular keyword. So if I typed in buy an iPhone, then what I want to do is I want to land on a page that is talking about what sells iPhone, an iPhone product page essentially. I don't want to land on a page that's talking about how to update an iPhone or what color iPhones or whatever it is. So you need to focus the intent on the keyword with the page that you display to people that are looking for it.
Right, because if I'm searching for how to buy an iPhone, I'm probably looking how to purchase an iPhone, not how to choose a color or what colors they're available in. I might have already made that decision and I'm ready to buy. So that makes a lot of sense for businesses, right? Like we have an intent that will help them make a better sale and will make us a happier customer. But what about for scientists and academics? How can SEO help scientists?
So if we go back to the buy an iPhone query, so that's really obvious and everybody knows what it is, right? But for example, SEO can work on anything. So SEO can work on somebody's name, business, on their university, their study, anything to do with science that people are looking for. So for example, if you are a scientist and you are maybe looking for a job, then what you'd want people to be able to find you, right? Now, it's no good people being able to find you if the results aren't probably favorable. So if you've got some dodgy Facebook photos of partying too hard, you want to make sure people can't find those or they're hidden. And what you want people to find is you want to find people, or you want people to see examples of your work history, where you've worked. So there's two sides of it really, is to hide things you don't want people to see, but also to make things visible that you do want them to see. So in that case, it's a personal thing. So looking for a job, if someone's searching for you, you want them to find the right things. If you're working for university and you've got a research group, then if somebody knows about that research group, they might want to find out more about it. So if they search the research group, they'd expect it to be top. You won't expect to be down at the bottom. If you've published any work, if you've got publications out there, then you probably want that to be visible as well. Or places where they can even download a copy. And even if it's a business, then if you are a scientific business or a consultant, like even I have to do SEO for myself, that when people search for me, I want them to find my name and find what I do, and then find examples of work I've done, anything that I've written, anything I've published as well. So that's it in a brief overview for SEO for scientists, but in reality, it's broad and it can apply to anything.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because when we first started talking about SEO, it was something that we could do for like websites. But now we're talking about SEO in terms of all of the results that are coming up. And some of those might not be results that you want to share. Maybe your personal Facebook page isn't your top priority, but your research lab group, that is. So there are things that you can do to draw attention to your larger online presence, not just a personal website, if that's what you have. And for scientists, having the right people find the information you want them to sounds like is what's most important.
Yeah, you have to think about is why is somebody, if it's a personal case and somebody's searching for your name or for my name, why are they searching for it? And that's probably because they've come across something that we've done previously, or they've got a word of mouth referral, and they're trying to make the initial contact. So that's really important, is that when they look for us, that we give them what they want. And there's not many reasons why people would search for somebody unless they're looking for them for a specific reason, right? Unless maybe someone's stalking me that I don't know about, or something that way. But why, I have to think, why would anybody be searching for me? Is it because I've reached out to them? Is it because they've heard of me somewhere else? They've seen my work? So what I try and do is anything that I publish online, I try and keep it related to life science marketing, because that is what I want to be known for, right? So that's the case with like social media as well. There's no harm having social media accounts come up to see that who you are. You can put a face. Sometimes it's a face to a name, that people don't always see that.
Right, that's true.
And then the rest of your profile can be blocked off. People don't have to go through all your photos. But if any social media as well, like Twitter, if you're publishing on Twitter and you're talking about science, maybe science communication, that's popular on Twitter, and you're talking about that, if somebody searches for your name, you probably want them to see your profile talking about that, because again, that's helping your cause. LinkedIn profiles are always good. YouTube channels, anything where you're sharing content that is related and professional rather than personal is probably a good idea to have visible.
So there are so many reasons that we may search for scientists online, or that scientists may want people to search for them online. And we talked about a few of these before the show, like job applications and outreach to companies or universities. So let's talk about one of these in particular. You said conference talks, and I actually use this as an example when I'm working with people one-on-one, because how many times do academics go to a conference and people don't really know who they are on the panel, or you might not know who the other panelists are. I mean, it's so helpful to be able to just do a quick Google search for someone and see a little bit more about them. That way, you know, oh, that's the person who I'm going to be talking to once I get in the room. So why are conference talks and like presentations something that SEO might be able to help us with?
So if you think about it, when you at conferences, you digest a lot of information. It's information heavy, right? And then you leave the day and you're like, wow, that's a lot of information. What am I going to
Right.
do with it, or am I ever going to see it again? So I think it's a case of you look back and you reflect and you think, oh, maybe I need some of that content from this talker. They were really good. Now, what's the first, if you don't know this person, you only know their name because that's the first time you met them. What's the first thing you do? You go on Google, right?
Yeah.
You search their name, or you might go on LinkedIn and look for them. But basically you're trying to connect with them somehow. And you want to find them. Now, if you have a generic name, or say I've just done a conference and I produced some resources and I said, contact me, I'll give you the PDF, the slides, or whatever you want. But I had a really generic name. Now that's going to be hard for somebody to find me because they're just typing in a name, right? They might type in a name plus scientist and find a way to get there. So if you have if you've worked on your SEO, personal SEO, then what you can do is you could even have a web page or a LinkedIn profile that talks about the specific industries you're in, your specialities, and then people can find you, they can connect, and you never know what comes out of a connection like that. So fortunately for me, and I guess for you, you've got quite a unique name. So if anybody looks for you, if they can spell it right, that is, in my case, then they can find me. But what I always do is I always try and make sure that when I publish something online, I'm Patrick Wareing, the life science marketing specialist, or life sciences, or something related to that.
That kind of gives people like one more phrase or keyword to add to their search that makes it more likely that you will come up. I think that's so helpful just to know about yourself too. Like if you haven't Googled yourself, if you haven't seen what kinds of results people might be seeing about you, you might not know to direct people to a certain keyword or phrase. It's like, hey, look me up on Google afterwards and type in this phrase. That would be much more helpful. And this is especially true if you don't have a website that you can direct people to, or if you're not really active on social media. There are definitely ways to share more beyond your conference talk, which is in person. You can share your slides online. You could share, the text of your presentation. You could share a link to your email address that invites people to get in touch. So like once people do that initial search, there are potentials for further collaboration or a longer term kind of networking relationship that can come out of this. But if they can't find you in the first place, it makes it pretty hard to take those next steps.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are asking for someone to contact you for the slides, then you've got to usually hope that they've written down your email from the slides, right? So I think what you've got to do is you've got to be aware of that, especially if you're presenting at conference or something like that. Is once you've done the talk, you've only done half the work. Is how can people come and find more? What do they need to do to find you? And like you say, it's a case of just having like a Twitter profile, even with your name, even if you don't use it as much, just to have some sort of social media account or website that is literally just your name and what you do, and that's the start. Just a link to an email or whatever it needs to be.
Yeah, I think that's great. Even if your account isn't very active, if you can post that one time on Twitter and say, hey, contact me about my presentation, and here's my email address, even that one tweet is something that is searchable within Twitter. There is like the possibility to use advanced search in Twitter to search for keywords, phrases, or people that you may have met at conferences or other places. And that's a great way to find community on Twitter. And so you can actually optimize your profile using kind of SEO for Twitter search and help more people find you there. The other thing that I really wanted to talk with you about is scientific publication outreach. So scientists publish a lot of papers. What is something that they can do to improve the potential for people actually reading them?
So the problem with scientific publications that I've found in the past, and I've even found this from a research point of view. So when I was working as a scientist in the lab, you have to find different solutions for different things. And the problem is that anything that gets published usually has really complex or complicated titles, right? Because
Mm.
they're super niche topics, and you've got to sort of hope that somebody comes across that. Now, that's fine, and it's almost out of your hands, because when you submit something for publication, it then gets uploaded on one of these publication sites, and you sort of lose it, really. You've lost control of how it gets shared online. But there's nothing stopping you from then republishing your own article, and well, you might not be able to copy it word for word, but there's nothing stopping you from sharing your article as like a blog post, or maybe like a LinkedIn post, where you simplify it. So you're not simplifying your research. What you're doing is simplifying the keywords that you use, and thinking about, if somebody wants to read this paper, what sort of things are they going to be searching for? They're not going to be searching for the exact title, but they'll be searching for keywords in it. So if you can think of different keywords that you think people might be interested in, and then rewrite it for those keywords, that might be a way for it to get picked up. But the problem with this is it requires you to do an additional publication online. You can't just hope for the best with your original article.
That is true. It does have to be an additional publication, but it
Yep.
doesn't really have to be long. I mean, you could write a LinkedIn article or a blog post that's a little bit longer, but even a tweet that uses some of those general key terms is going to be more likely to be read, or a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post. Any of these are possibilities for talking about your work. And the nice thing about that is if you don't know that, once you do one of those posts, you can pin it to the top of your profile on Twitter. You can add it to the featured media section on LinkedIn. So there are possibilities to make these kind of social media posts a little bit more permanent, a little bit more static, to invite more people to read them. So it sounds like there are ways to direct people to your publications. Maybe is it possible to like optimize your title before publication for SEO? Is that something that you ever recommend?
It's not something that I've ever recommended. It's never been posed to me that way. I think that the way that people publish articles is that the last thing they're really thinking about is who's going to read it or who's going to search for it. They're probably worried about where it's going to be published, or
Mm.
which publication is it going to be in, and how does that look for my own vanity, sort of thing.
Or my
So
professional goals.
yeah,
Yeah.
I I I don't know. It probably depends how people, if they want people to get in contact with a paper afterwards. But for
Hmm.
example, say you did want to optimize a publication for keywords, then I think it's basically what I just said, is to think about what people would be searching for, and how your publication or your research, your work, could answer those sort of phrases. So I think it's about taking it one step backwards.
Mm.
But I guess it's not a case of then rewriting your whole work for SEO purposes, because I think that would defeat the object, really. Um, so yeah, anything where you can optimize your work, whether it's the original or a copy, with keywords, would be the way to go.
I think that's such helpful advice, especially because maybe scientists aren't thinking about that at the time when they're writing their articles and sending it for publication. But that's something that, anyone who's listening to this might take an extra 5 minutes or so. And it's not just the title. I know, like when I published my last publication, they had me pick 5 keywords to go in with their database, to help people find it. And so that was actually something that they asked me to do. And maybe they're asking you too, and you weren't sure where to go. So let me ask you this, because people that I work with get confused about this sometimes. What is a keyword, right? It's a word or a phrase. It's not just words. So, like, what is a keyword, and how do we even begin to figure out what keywords are right for us?
Yeah. So Keywords is typically it would just be a single word that you'd search. So let me go back to my first example, is iPhone. iPhone on its own could be a keyword. Now, keywords and key phrases, the terms usually get used interchangeably, with key phrase indicating there's more than one word. So sometimes when even I refer to a keyword, that can mean like even up to a sentence. So a example in this case is what size or what memory can I get on an iPhone? That long sentence, that can be a keyword, but is sometimes referred to as a key phrase. So it doesn't matter really which one you use, but there's differences in them. So if you think about it, every time you make a search on the internet, if you're looking for something, you might start off quite broad. So you'd search maybe 1, 2, 3 words. That is very broad. But as you start to read more and you start looking for specific intent, which I mentioned earlier, is then you might start asking Google questions and you put in really specific terms. So what you have to think about is people will look for maybe top level information. And if you think about it with science, they might think, what is let's think, what is an immunoglobulin? And they'd be like, search and be, this is what it is, generic. But then if you're looking to maybe use it with antibodies in the lab, then you'd start searching for different things related to antibodies, immunoglobulins, and do it that way.
So more specific key phrases so that you can find the results that actually matter most to you.
Yeah, exactly. And then the important difference between those is the broad terms usually have more searches a month, because lots of people are searching for them. But really specific keywords or key phrases might not get as many exact searches a month, just because of the nature of how many words you add, really.
People aren't really searching for key phrases sometimes as much. They're almost like too specific for everyone to search, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's how it works. So when you start looking for key phrases or optimizing for key phrases, when I'm helping companies, is that they'll usually be like, oh, we want to rank for this keywords. And I'll say, well, that's great. It's got loads of searches, but it's too generic. People aren't looking for it. So I think it's a balance of finding the high volume keywords, but with really specific intent. So going back to your question, I know I've talked quite a bit since you asked the question, but if you search for something in Google and you scroll down to the page, you will see like these, also the people also ask questions. So that's one really good way of finding long tail keywords. So maybe short sentences that people are searching for, and you can see a question and an answer. And the more you click, the more it auto generates, and you can get quite a long list of those. The other way to find them through Google is if you scroll right down to the bottom of the page for a keyword, above where it says next page and you have the arrows, you will also come up with usually 8 different related keywords. And they're usually a bit shorter, not quite the questions, but these are topics that are similar, and they'll search for one query and then they'll move on to the next because they're trying to solve their intent, basically.
And when you're searching, it's easy to just click on like, oh, maybe this query will get my results. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's what it's doing, is Google's trying to lead you the way based on what other people have done before. It doesn't always get it right, but usually that's a good way to start. So if you're a complete newbie and you don't have any understanding of keywords, that's probably a good way to go. For people like me that are doing SEO as a service, there's way to get volumes of keywords. So what these are tools that you pay for, and they take data from lots of different places online, and they will tell you roughly how many people are searching for different phrases each month. So for example, I can generate a list related to specific area of science, and then say, look, here's 500 keywords that people are talking about. Maybe you want to start writing content around these topics so you can get found and people can find your business as a solution, your product or service as a solution. So that's the overview of it, really, is that that's the way to look. But there are tools out there that will tell you how many people are searching for different things.
Now, some of the scientists who are watching this may work for life science companies as research scientists or in other positions. Mm-hmm. You are someone that might be great to work with in those instances because you're a consultant and so you help people with that kind of thing. What are some of the other things you kind of help people with?
So I help with anything that's digital marketing, really. So if you think digital marketing is about improving your appearance online, so SEO is one way of improving your appearance online because you are creating content for these keywords. So that's one way. But if it's a case of you want to work to optimize your social media, if you want to produce content that is similar to what you have on your website and also uses keywords, that's quite important. So there's one thing known about SEO and there's another way of actually implementing it. So that is usually about writing content. So you will see lots of blog posts on some very popular websites, science websites, maybe ones that sell lab consumables, and they'll write blog posts and articles. And that is all to help with SEO, is that they're writing really specific content that matches usually a key phrase, and they're answering it. So when people search, they land on their website and they go and click through. So that's content marketing. You create the content that does the marketing for you. So I help with content creation or content planning, which is very much alongside with SEO. And that's it really. I think the three things is social media, SEO, and content marketing. But that doesn't limit it. If you think sometimes there's on Google and search engines, you have paid ads as well. So before you even get to the main results, you have listings of ads, and that in itself is another digital marketing speciality, which also focuses on keywords. Other than that, I don't know enough to be able to sell a service to anybody. But and that's sort of like the opposite to SEO as such. But if you think about it, that since the pandemic, everybody's been stuck at home and they can't go to conferences, they can't go to exhibitions. So where do they go? Is they have to go online.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this year might have been kind of the year that people realized, oh, as a scientist, this could actually be beneficial to me. Maybe this is something that I should start doing. So what are the things that scientists can kind of start doing to improve their SEO, to improve that kind of online presence and what's found about them?
So I think the first thing really is to manage your visibility on Google. So if you're completely new to this, then the first thing to do is to literally Google your name, or Google your name plus science plus the company you work at, some sort of modifiers that identify you. Now, what you need to do is you need to go and look through all the results, and I'd usually go and look through the first 2 or 3 pages just to see what you can find, because they might not all be relevant to you. They might be somebody else. So if you can find what is available on Google or what's currently showing, then you might want to think, oh yes, this is a good piece to keep there, or no, this is probably not good to show my Facebook profile. Let's hide that. So the first thing to do would be that, really. Now you have to think that every time you update a site, it doesn't always reflect in Google straight away. So just because you put your Facebook picture, it changes, or you've changed your name, that won't always reflect in Google, so you have to be a bit patient with that. The other things I would do is then go and optimize any social media accounts or personal websites or websites that you're associated with. So your company might have a blog which you published on, or your university might have a page with a staff page or a researchers page, or even a blog where people have written things. So if you can get profile pages on these accounts, you don't really have to do the hard work. You just have to put your name and your photo as a bare minimum, but you could also put a short bio that introduces yourself, and there's no harm copying and pasting that same bio across 10 different places saying, this is what I do, here's a contact email if you need to do it. So that's what I would recommend as like the basic, because anybody can do it. You've got control of that. If you're lucky enough to be talked about, as in somebody's talking about you, saying this person's a really good scientist, hopefully, then what would be good is if you can reach out to these people and say, oh, thank you for contacting me. Would you mind linking back to this profile page, because this is my main profile page, and if somebody wants to contact me, then please do. So I think that's you've got to look through Google really, and Bing, because Google and Bing will show different things sometimes. So
that's a great point.
Cast your net wide. Alternatively as well, and something I recommend, although it's advanced, is to get a personal website. And even if you can just get your name .com, or like in the UK just get anything that is relevant and keep it. Even if you don't put a website on it, just buy it, and it'll be what, $10 a year. And the idea is, if you can put something on it in the future, even if it's just your face and your name, then do it with an email button, great. But if you can start sharing or publishing content on it, even better. And it's a bit of a compound effect. So if you do little and often, in 5 years' time, you'll probably have lots of people come to your website without you doing any work.
No, why? I mean, like, I totally agree with this, but why do you find a personal website is like a more advanced, maybe not your first step, but like a more advanced step?
So creating a website really is, it's not something you get taught to create a website.
Right.
And I was in the position when I left university is that I had an interest in like creating a website. I always wanted to do it, but I didn't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you hear of all these different websites that offer, so like Wix, Squarespace, WordPress. It's like, which one do you pick? So
pick WordPress.
Yeah.
For scientists.
Yeah, I recommend WordPress, because in going for it's so flexible and probably also the cheapest option.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need help, anybody can do it. But I realized that sites like Wix or Squarespace, they're really easy to do. You don't need to have any knowledge. You can just drag and drop elements, and you can copy a theme. Although if you were to create a full website, it'd probably be detriment to your SEO. But that's a story for another time.
Well, I've heard like Wix is not great for SEO. I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend sites like this. But when people say Wix is bad for SEO, it's sort of true. If you had a full-blown website and you're trying to run a business with hundreds or thousands of pages, it's probably not the best solution. But if you simply want to have a homepage, an about page, and maybe a portfolio, then it is a perfect solution for scientists. Even if you think it's better than not having something.
Right.
So I'd always recommend that as like maybe the intermediate step. So then once you have a page like this, you've literally got your name out on your own domain name, And that's probably one of the best things you can do and easiest things for SEO. Whether you want to do something with it in the future is up to you.
And if you don't have time to create a website right now, or maybe update your website if you have one, updating your faculty, staff, or research profile on your university's website is a great first step. One of the other things that I wanted to point out is that a lot of the things Patrick just mentioned, ask for some kind of bio, or a bio would be really beneficial to that, whether it's on your personal website, whether it's a social media bio, or a bio for news media or your university who might be writing about you or your work. So having a bio in place and having maybe a headshot that you could share with people is actually going to be really helpful for your online presence in general. That way you have it if anyone needs it. And if you find an opportunity to create a website or to update your LinkedIn profile or anything like that, then you can go ahead and copy and paste it in there, and save you some time. So having an updated bio and headshot can be really helpful for this whole process as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree in that. And if you ever get invited to speak somewhere, one of the first things people do is ask for a headshot and bio. But if they can find it online, they'll probably take it without you realizing. So that obviously that's a good thing. But if you have one good photo and one good bio, it can quickly spread across the internet into different places, which is in your benefit, really.
I think that is so great. We've talked about so much stuff today. We talked about what is SEO. We talked about why it's important for scientists and some of the reasons why people are searching for scientists. There's so many. Maybe it's a job application or outreach to companies or universities. And like we talked about, there are those conference talks, presentations, and other publications that will help other people find the work and the research that scientists do. Stuff that you've used in the past. I know that scientists are out there searching different things all the time, right? They want to find answers to their questions. It's like what they're trained to do. So there are things that you can do, everyone who's watching, to kind of improve the chances that people will find you and your work online. Thank you so much for all of these, like answering all of these questions today, Patrick. I feel like it's really demystifying for some of the people who are watching, especially people who've never heard of SEO, who don't really know what keywords or key phrases are. And so I think that this really helped them understand some of the things that they can do, whether it's social media, personal websites, or really just having a bio and headshot like ready to share with people when they need it. Once you Google yourself and you know kind of what's out there about you, it kind of helps motivate you to take the next steps. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about SEO or that you want to talk about today?
No, I think that was a good outro really there. I don't have too much. I think if you are interested in SEO or learning about it, there's plenty of resources online, and some that I've sent to you that are in the link below. I think what you need to be aware of is there's lots of information and it can get really technical sometimes. So don't worry about thinking you don't know enough. I taught myself about SEO, so if I can do it, anybody can do it, and it's just chipping away at it, doing small and often if you want to actively get involved with it.
I think that's so great. I taught myself SEO as well. I feel like it was a big learning curve, and you went like beyond me. You're like a technical SEO person, but just starting with a key phrase like your name or your name plus your field of research, like this can make a big difference for how people are finding you online. So I encourage you to take those first steps. And if you have any questions, drop them in the video below. Get in touch with Patrick. His website is patrickwareing.com. And so I will drop that link below as well. I'm so excited that you joined me today, Patrick. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for having me. It's been great to speak to you.
Awesome. All right, the stream is just finishing up now. If you could hold on one sec. I can see myself talking. All right. The stream is now over. Awesome.